Democratic Congressman André Carson of Indiana. He's a member of the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf, for having me.
Let's begin with demands from top Democrats for the FBI to investigate Florida spa owner Cindy Yang and whether or not she attempted to leverage her relationship with the president by selling access to Chinese clients. What specifically do you want the FBI to look into?
Well, I think that this is something that needs a thorough investigation to see if Ms. Yang was unscrupulous in granting access, or if, in fact, there's a serious national security threat. The Chinese government has demonstrated throughout the years an acute expertise at placing specific assets and targets to really target and hone in on high-profile folks. And if this is the case, we need to see if she's connected to, in fact, the Chinese intelligence services.
We'll see where this investigation heads. Also tonight, that's the deadline for some 81 individuals and entities to respond to the House Judiciary request for documents pertaining to multiple investigations involving President Trump. The Trump administration has indicated they intend to fight many of these requests. How should Democrats respond if the White House, for example, tries to stonewall your colleagues, congressional investigators?
Well, I think if there's nothing to hide, then I would hope that the administration will be cooperative with the investigation. Those who are subpoenaed are certainly required to cooperate. They should cooperate. Anyone who refuses to cooperate, it raises red flags for me, Wolf. Listen, the legislative branch was created to act as a check on the executive branch, and Democrats are doing that. Republicans had 2 years to act as a check. They failed miserably, and now Democrats are assuming the responsibility to act as a check in line with the framers' vision for our government, and I think it's panning out quite well.
Yeah, you just heard Evan Perez, our justice correspondent, report that if they don't respond, subpoenas potentially could be down the road. Amidst all of this, Congressman, redacted documents pertaining to the raid of Michael Cohen's home and office are also about to be released. The public could learn significant new information about the circumstances surrounding the search warrant, for example, as well as the documents seized by authorities. Evan Perez was also reporting about that. As you know, Cohen has been cooperating with your committee, with federal prosecutors, federal investigators. Do you have access to all the documents that you need?
Well, we're still waiting for Director Mueller's documents to be released and the summation of his investigation. I think it will be very insightful. I think it will allow us to have a clearer path in terms of where the Congress goes from here. So we're waiting patiently. But to your earlier point, Michael Cohen was cooperative with our query about a week and a half ago. And so I am hopeful that the American people are finally getting a chance to see that the democratically controlled Congress were acting as good stewards and trustees over their interests in taxpayer dollars.
I want to get your thoughts, Congressman, on the president's response to the massacre of Muslim worshipers in New Zealand last week. The president says he doesn't see a growing global threat from white nationalists, white supremacists. You're one of 3 Muslim members of Congress. What's your response to the president?
Well, I was disappointed with the president's timidity as it related to addressing the cancerous element that white nationalism has presented itself to be for decades, one would argue centuries now. And I think our resources, law enforcement resources, intel resources have been largely devoted to exploring and identifying Islamic extremists. I think more resources need to be devoted at identifying and having a collection database of white nationalists and white supremacists, many of whom serve in law enforcement capacities, unfortunately, many of whom have become a lot harder to detect because institutionally they've been protected. And so I think now's the time for our resources to be diverted with the kind of specificity necessary to unearth this cancerous element from our society.
Some of your colleagues in the House and elsewhere, Democrats, have actually called the president a white nationalist. Do you believe the president is a white nationalist?
I won't speak in absolute terms, but I will say that the president, unfortunately, has been dog whistling, winking, tiptoeing through the tulips, if you were, signaling to that part of his base. in a way that is reaffirming, in a way that allows them to assume that he is in absolute support of them and he appreciates their support and vote.
Congressman André Carson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf. Always a pleasure.